Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Steve Campaign.
And I'm Scott Clark, and this is the Ice Hut edition with Pauline Rochefort, and it's brought to you by North Bay Toyota.
It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota. Attention truck lovers. Have you been Tundra struck? The powerful and dependable Toyota Tundra is the new definition of grit. Ask us about amazing lease deals on a 2025 Tundra Double Cap SR 4-wheel drive and experience ingenious levels of capability, technology, and refinement. Or maybe you're an SUV lover? Take advantage of a limited shipment of 2025 RAV4s and discover the perfect blend of style, comfort, and efficiency in a compact SUV that ignites your desire to explore. Right now, get excellent lease deals on the Toyota RAV4 LE all-wheel drive and more. It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota, 640 McEwen, or online at northbaytoyota.com for details.
This is the Ice Hut edition of the Echo Essentials podcast. We're out on Lake Nipissing. Now, if you're watching this later into March, we want to let you know that we did this before the fishing season ended. Joining us today is the Mayor of East Ferris, Pauline Rochefort. Bonjour.
Bonjour, oui.
And Pauline also, why we wanted to connect with her, she just in this past week was acclaimed as the candidate for the Liberal Party to run in the next federal election, which is coming up in the next little bit.
Yes. We think we'll know after Sunday when the federal election will be called, but you're correct, I would think.
So are you still the mayor of East Ferris?
Yes. I anticipate that the election season may be short, and so I believe that it will be less disruptive for the municipality this way.
And so what actually happens there in that? So once, because this is the weekend that the leadership will be announced for the Liberal Party. And so once the election starts, because I guess we're anticipating it's going to happen fairly soon.
Well, the belief is that it will. And personally, I think it would be a good thing, certainly. I think Canadians are expecting an election. And you know, this week I was at a large manufacturing company here in our riding, and I was amazed that, you know, with all the issues of tariffs, that in 24 hours, they had to evaluate 3 different scenarios, cost them out, legal issues, accounting issues, large dollars involved, you know, and having to turn around quickly to take action. So there's just so much uncertainty. And I feel that, you know, if we were to call the elections, determining when they'll be held, will be one less uncertainty. So, yes.
Gotcha. Stu, what do you have for Pauline?
Pauline, congratulations on your acclamation. And I think the easy way to start off is, Why are you looking to make this jump? What are you just at a point in your career where you're looking for new challenges?
I have found public service to be very important. I have worked in the government environment for many years. My career was, to some extent, with the Business Development Bank. And so the Business Development Bank is a Crown corporation involved with businesses. But for the last 3 terms, I have served on the Council Municipality of East Ferris. And I found that work to be very important. And so when all of the issues in the last recent months started to occur, I thought it was important to stand up for our country, and I would say that was a significant motivator in wanting to put my name forward.
What about ice fishing?
Oh, yeah. So,
tell us. It's so weird. We're not even acknowledging that we're actually ice fishing. We should.
Yes, for the record, they do have minnows on their lines, and they are expecting to catch a big fish. So,
but you grew up in East Ferris, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's my home.
Yeah.
And on Lake Nipissing, so I grew up with lots of fishing huts in front of our house, and lots of members of our family that enjoy fishing, hunting. It's all part of the recreation.
Now, Pauline, I've known you for a number of years. I literally didn't know till recently who your father was. Yeah. Because we've hired Bernard Rochefort, to do many things. They're well known. Tell us a little about your dad and your family business and that.
Yeah. Well, I came prepared to say a few words because he is the honorary chair of the Pauline Rochefort campaign. And actually, he wanted to be the chair. He's 95. 95. And this was very important for him as well. So I brought a few things just to share with you. I hope it's all right.
Yeah.
Yes. And
that's what we do at the ISEC. We share a lot. There's a lot of sharing out here.
My father had a long career, and I'll share that with you, but he's also written books because as he got older, he felt it was very important to write and to put his the story of our community, of his family in writing. So, for example, this is one of his books, and in it you'll find all kinds of, these are all paintings that he's made.
He did the paintings?
He did the paintings, and it
Come
tells
on,
the
those are
story
beautiful.
of, these are in the 1930s. So basically this is the story of Astorville in the 1930s, and it tells about how, the families, many people often ask about Astorville because of all the huge hills. Why did the people settle there long ago? And many of the founding families, my father's in particular, came from la région de Charlevoix in Quebec, La Malbaie we call it, where there's lots of hills that go down into the St. Lawrence. So it's believed that when they arrived here, they saw those large hills, they felt at home. So that's why they settled there. So this book tells that story a little bit. Yeah.
Pauline, why is, and it's interesting that, why is there such a large French or Francophone influence in that area?
Well, it's believed that because they were somewhat isolated from the development in North Bay to some extent, and there was an entrepreneurial streak through all of them.
Yeah.
They developed businesses and they settled there, and so it was somewhat isolated.
Huh.
And so as a result of that, the language remained for a number of years. But for my father, for example, this is another book he wrote, Nipissing Junction and beyond. And when we were children, he would walk from home to Nipissing Junction to work. We'll never forget that.
How far is that?
That was quite a walk. So that's just to say the kind of man that he is. But when he was 15, he left home. And he went and joined the CPR up. And we often sing the song, the Johnny Cash song, I've been everywhere, man, because he worked in over 50 different communities throughout the North and the United States. But then when he came back and married my mother, they settled in Astorville, and he started in business. And he's often very proud, and I say that just to describe the kind of man he is. He was involved in, in the field of electricity. And so as our world changed from coal to wood to electricity, he's always very proud to say that he won one of Ontario's first awards for having converted the most homes to electric baseboards. So that was, but I would say that initiatives like that or rewards like that fueled him on. And he went on to do many things. And so, and so in the world of business in our area, certainly Bernard Rochefort Limited, and it was carried on by my brother, who's done an excellent job. And it was recently sold. And I'm very proud of sharing this story because I find in East Ferris, there's been a number of family-owned businesses that have now been passed on to third and fourth generations. And as you know, succession in business is not easy. It's never an assured success. Yet in our community, because of the care that has been given and with the support of wonderful professionals in North Bay, in the field of taxation, accounting, we've had some wonderful transfers of businesses. But my father, a few years ago, traveled through the North and went to all these stations, Marathon and all of them. I mean, he lists them all, Geraldton and so on. And he was always so disappointed to see that all the train stations had closed. And he came back and he wrote this book, All Gone. So he felt it was really, to some extent, it's a sad book. But I say that just because recently when he discovered that the Northlander was coming back, and he heard about recently as well in the last few months, the fast train that's being suggested between Montreal and Toronto, he thought those are exactly the kind of nation building projects, as we call, or province building projects that we need. So as a result of his passion, he wanted very much, and if he could have been here today, if it hadn't been so cold, I think he would have been here in person. Anyway, a few words. Thank you for asking.
It's the family name, and I didn't put the two and two together because I've known you a long time. I was like, oh, Bernard Rochefort. I didn't put the two and two together. So. How did you? You must talk politics at the table with your father. I'm just kind of curious how that. What is your father saying right now about you getting involved in, like, your father's seen many transitions of power and politics over the years. What does he say about? Yeah, you're crazy, Pauline. Like, what are you doing?
I have the support of my family and my husband. I've been married for over 45 years, and the support of my husband as well. And so I'm very fortunate in that respect to have complete support that surrounds me. But certainly in the last little while, we've really been taken with Mark Carney. And I'd like to share just a little anecdote.
Yeah.
I often do some of these long distance walks, these hikes around the different parts of the world. And in 2019, I was in Scotland walking from Fort William to Cape Wrath. And everyone I walked with on that group would say, I would say I'm Canadian. They would say, do you know Mark Carney? Because it was just before the Brexit vote. And for them, I mean, it was a major event in their lives, right? The Brexit vote. And so Mark Carney was very important to them. And that's when I discovered that Mark Carney was also the chair. I didn't know about these organizations, but there's a financial stability board that exists in the world that brings together all of the G20 countries, and where they look after the stability of financial matters across the world. So and then I came back to Canada, and then I put two and two together. I realized that Mark Carney had been our Bank of Canada governor during the 2008 recession. And I remembered that recession well at that point. So I became fascinated to some extent with Mark Carney, and was really hoping that he would put his name forward and in politics. So yes, we're very much in support of Mark Carney. I would say we're very much in support for us, as I would say here as well. I speak for myself at this point. I find it's important in the moment in which we are to have a very strong central government. I would say there's many Canadians that feel that in recent years our government might have gone a bit too much to the left. And I would say that there's many others that don't want to see us going too far to the right. Is that a catch?
I think I felt something, but if we catch something, this will be great. Ties it all together. We'll make Stu take it out.
I got no problem doing that.
Oh, okay, good.
So to stay in the middle, I think, is so important, and that is Mark Carney. And so in this future in which we're heading, with everything that we're facing, to have financial acumen to me is an essential skill. To have diplomacy, proven diplomacy in conflictual situations is another important skill. And so and there's many others, but I feel that Mark Carney demonstrates those skills. And maybe just a few other points. I could probably talk to Ted. You could just tell me if I'm talking a bit too long.
I'd love Stu to ask a couple of questions. So, and Stu, I want you to lean in to ask. I'm not a journalist, but you are. So, because there's a big play here. There's a lot happening. Like at this point, nobody has been named the leader. We'll find out in just a couple of days or so. But there's a lot at play right now. It's actually, I find it quite scary, to be honest.
Well, I think that's one way of putting it, for sure. I think we're and with American politics, the state of it now, I think we're at a real crossroads in our lives. Things are going to change, be it for worse or for the good, right now. This is when it's going to happen. So, I wonder, Pauline, so you've kind of indicated maybe a little more to the center with the government. Yeah. So I take that as kind of reading between the lines as maybe kind of not a fan of the end of Trudeau's kind of reign.
Well, certainly, I mean, after COVID, there was a need in our country to have stability. And I mean, we can all appreciate that. We had just lived through it ourselves, and we were looking for stability ourselves. And so basically, the election was called maybe a bit too late, and it resulted in a coalition that might have brought, for some, I mean, different points of view, certainly, but for some Canadians, and we hear it in our community, a bit more too much to the left. Certainly myself, I've always been, I think some might describe me as a blue liberal, because I tend to be very much in favor of the involvement of our private sector. And as I see in Mark Carney, I see him speaking in need of that, in need of investment in our country. And so so I would say that the center's a good spot, because as well, as I say, to bring in all the parties, we need to be unified for the future in which we're heading. It's very essential as a country that we move forward unified. And so...
Catch any?
I'm sorry.
Well, that might have been my sunglasses.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. No catch. Sorry.
No catch. Okay.
I'm doing my best for you, but So I was going to ask you, all points well taken. So it's a hard time to get into politics for you, especially just with the climate. You know, we kind of got a prime minister who was very well liked, and it's kind of declined as time went on. And I think as the longer the reign, I think kind of that tends to happen.
Kind of declined.
Well,
I think if Trudeau ran, it would have decimated the Liberal Party. It would have decimated them. Like I don't think anybody doubts that.
No, and it was obviously time for him to step down. And I think maybe the criticism does forget some of the good things that were accomplished over the years, you know.
Keep talking.
But what I was going to ask is, you know, and I've seen you over the years in your capacity as the mayor, and I've always noticed that you interact and govern well alongside people no matter the party. For instance, Vic Fideli.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've always noticed how, and I didn't really know you were a Liberal until you declared for the seat. But it shows me now that you can work with anybody.
Well, I always say in me there's a little bit of green, there's a little bit of orange, there's a little bit of blue. And I mean, I was a fan of Brian Mulroney, for example. Everything he did for our country, trying to unify our country through the Meech Lake Accord or the Charlottetown Accord, standing up for apartheid, against apartheid. And so, yes, I mean, I'm certainly at a provincial level, our MPP, Vic Fideli, is impressive. He's worked so hard. I follow him. I mean, one day he's in Taiwan, the next day he's in San Francisco, and then he's in North Bay, and then he's in East Ferris the next day. And I mean, it's impressive, the work ethic, it's the results. I can also say, you know, recently, one of the things I've really liked is seeing how all of the premiers of our provinces put aside their colors and their differences and working with the federal government, they became unified. And I find that is going to be so important. And in that, there's a lot of Liberal government. There's a team there. And that's important as well for people to take note. I understand people may say, 10 years, we need a change. But the climate has changed. The circumstances have changed. And I think we need, if we don't want to repeat what occurred in the United States, I would say that there's a matter to be paid attention to. And so you've seen all of the premiers come together and work well with Dominique Leblanc or with, Mélanie Joly, the team that's there in place. So for me, I look at now Mark Carney brings in change, completely new person, new environment. But what that means is that there's a strength there. Like there's a team. It's like, who do you want to win the Stanley Cup? Well, there's a winning team there. They're proven, they're experienced, they can come out of the gate swinging. And right now, we can't afford to not have a team that comes out of the gate swinging. And that is what I think right now is before us. So I think it's less a matter of color. It's a matter of situational leadership. And right now, they are, for me, the right leaders at the right point in time.
Sports aren't just what we do. They're who we are. Source for Sports North Bay is your advocate, your local support system, and your biggest fan. 1321 Fisher Street has grown from a place where knowledgeable experts can help you find exactly the gear you need, to the hotbed of team uniforms, apparel and fanwear, to a community stronghold for all the things that truly matter to you and your family's sports journey. We love helping you find your first pair of skates, as much as we relish supporting local leagues, teams, and athletes. Wherever your sports journey takes you, make sure you visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street so we can help you along your way.
One of the things I want to ask, Pauline, because I've always felt, I know because our system is very different than the United States, obviously, but many times just the way it's positioned, especially in a federal election, is that we as a populace are voting for a leader when we're not. We're voting for our representative that's going to, and you and others will be running to be our representative. And I would really like to see and hear from you about, what difference you're going to make. And I know a lot of politicians will say, well, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to be, all these different things. But I'd like to know what's sort of in your head about, there is, we have so many resources. We have the biggest mining companies, engineering companies here. We're positioned to really have some growth in our area. And you come from, East Ferris and Astorville, and you're the mayor there now, and it must be, there isn't a lot of tax base there. So building roads and fixing everything, it's a grind. So my question is, if you were to become the representative for us here, how would you approach this as our representative?
Thank you that's a good question. I appreciate you asking it. And certainly I have a background. I have worked across the country in different positions, executive positions. And at some point in the wood industry, I was at the time of the softwood dispute back in 2006. And I was part of that industry. I experienced the impact of tariffs on our Canadian companies as their wood product manufacturer. Sorry, I think there's a guest.
Next guest?
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Certainly, I want to say I do want to honor the work that our MP Anthony Rhoda has done. He has been an excellent MP for our riding. But to your point, local issues that I'd like to work on. I'd like to work on the opportunities that reside in our riding. You touched on it. I mean, just in North Bay, we have over 60 companies that are involved in mining that have terrific opportunity for the future in which we're heading. And we talk about the critical minerals. And so that is very important. I was delighted this past week when I saw our government further involve our financial crown corporations in Canada. I think that's important. For example, Export Development Corporation, and so as well as Farm Credit Corporation, a Business Development Bank, because there was going to be a need for investment, for access to capital, for supporting our Canadian companies. And so that's very much some of the work that I would like to be able to do. But agriculture, I mean, we talk about farms, but they're not farms. They're established wonderful businesses in the field of agriculture in Nipissing-Timiskaming, modern, leading edge farming entities. So as we talk about food security in our country, we have great opportunity here as well to build on. So certainly I would very much like that. That is important because as we talk about issues of affordability, and we'll touch on that, I'm sure in a moment, to me, the answer is economic prosperity, jobs. And so how do we work at that level is certainly important.
We have some guests coming in. That's all right. Well, let's keep going. That's what a nice head is. It's a flow of guests.
Certainly, we're on a lake. One of the issues that's important to me is the cleanup of Trout Lake. I mean, all the work's been done there, but certainly as part of this next mandate, that would involve making sure that work is well done so that the quality of water in Trout Lake is good. But just on that as well, as our country talks about defense, we have an air base that has opportunity for growth. I think that's something as well that would be interesting to work on.
I agree, because I was honorary colonel for a number of years there. And if there's one area that would just take literally a signature to change is the air base in the military. And considering that we're working towards meeting our mandate for the first time with NATO obligations, the base and what's happening here has more of a role in not only our sovereignty, but also the security of North America. And I think if there's one spot that could actually absolutely have growth, and that is in defense in our base here.
Correct. I agree. We can work on that together then.
Okay. I'm all in on that. I'm all in on that. It's an important part. Stu, what do you have?
Well, I've been wondering, and I don't want to be too controversial.
No, be controversial.
I did want to ask, since you have an interesting position in this race as the mayor of East Ferris and the Liberal candidate, but we've had a controversy with the Conservative candidate about her place of where she resides. There's been some questions. Is she still living in Quebec? Is she still living in Ottawa? But she claims to live in East Ferris. So technically, your opponent in this race could be one of your constituents.
Well, certainly, yes.
Right.
Her parents live her parents relocated, from what I understand, from Iroquois Falls, and they settled in Corbeil. And I understand that Mrs. Villeneuve has gone to school in our community, and so she is a northerner in that sense. And earlier, actually this week as well, the NDP party elected another northerner northerner from Englehart. And so very much it's an all-female race, if I had to put it in those terms, and all northerners. And but I do find it important to come from the community. I mean, there are issues that, for example, the whole issue of affordability is certainly in our community, we've been involved in that, working, our DSAB just produced a great report, very informative report that shows that in the next decade, within the communities that are part of the DSAB organization, there's a need for 6,000 new units in this next decade for affordable housing, rent geared to income. So that's significant. And so it's by living here and working here that you become aware of these particular issues. Internet, that's another, I've been on that file for a long time, and it's still not resolved. I mean, if you exclude North Bay, 45% of our communities around us, 45% of them are not up to, our homes are not up to the standard of 50 megabytes per hour for the download and 10 for the upload. So, there's work to be done. And so certainly I think there is, when you come from the community, it does bring a certain knowledge of those issues. I must say in the Timiskaming area as well, I've worked, before I worked in Timmins, I traveled there. Northeastern Ontario has been part of my territory for a couple different positions I've held. I've worked with Grand Council Treaty Number 9. It was my first job. I'm not of Indigenous descent, but First Nation descent. But so I am from this area. I have traveled through the area. But I'd like to maybe share one story, however. I hadn't been to New Liskeard in the past few years. And at our council, we've passed resolutions in support of Phenom and the need to do something about the traffic and the transports heading north. I've now been, in the last little while, I've been a number of times now. I couldn't believe it. I've promised John Van Hoff that if I'm elected, I am lending my voice. I know it's a provincial matter, but I am going to lend my voice to that issue. It's not correct. It's dangerous, absolutely dangerous. And so,
highway safety?
Oh my dear!
Okay.
No, yes, absolutely. So on that note, I just wanted to add those as local issues to
it's
to
so
be
true though.
tackled.
Like people that from Southern Ontario don't understand. Like our main transportation hub goes right through here to transport everything in this country. It's a 2-lane highway, and the weather this winter it's incredibly dangerous, and we lose many lives every year. And you're right. We need a unified voice to talk about that. And how could you, on a federal side, like I'm excited about, and truth be told, my son works at the ONR now, and right in the refurbishment yard and everything, and with the new Northlander coming, that's an exciting time for all of us, but exciting for just transportation and the flow of not just goods but people. How does the federal government play into that, or does it?
Well, I mean, it's always interesting, the involvement of the federal government. It's always sometimes in, different ways. So it's difficult sometimes to see how they can be involved. But I always feel that there's always, in every project, an opportunity for the federal government, an opportunity for the provincial government, and they work hand in hand. But it changes depending on the project or on the situation. So I can't specifically say for the ONR, but for example, we see the fast train that's being put forward for like the corridor between Montreal, Toronto, and London, which is so essential. And so there's strong involvement there by a federal government, and so I'm sure that there's equally involvement at the ONR level.
Anything I'm missing, Stu? Because I'm not catching anything here. So
Yeah, I'm
not catching
I am
anything.
admittedly a much better writer than I am fisherman. But
Angler.
I actually brought you a gift, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm impressed that you're such great outdoorsmen. And here in the cold weather, fishing and working at the same time.
now, before you take those out, Pauline, red hats are a little dangerous in these
Oh,
times.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
I hope they don't.
They are.
I hope they don't say what I think.
No,
they do.
they
it
don't.
didn't. Yeah, you're right.
I did give that some thought, but they come from the honorary chair, who is 95 years old. So
Your dad made these?
Yeah, so I brought these for you.
Oh, that's so
from
nice.
him, as he wanted to be here. So he picked the color, which is the
I
red.
understand why. Yeah.
So there we
Thank
go.
you very much.
Thank you
Paul.
so much.
Merci,
Nice.
Monsieur Rochefort.
Any any final words as I'll put another log on the fire here and we wrap this up? Anything else that you'd like to add? Like, this is, I'm sure once we get into the thick of the battle of it all, we'll have all the candidates together and we'll talk a little bit more, but this is just Ice Hut time. So anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm good with that. But I welcome the opportunity to talk and meet people. I mean, that's very important. I know these election campaigns are going to be short, but as I said, I want to represent everyone, be the voice for everyone. So I welcome the opportunity to talk with people.
Okay. Well, it's a really interesting time. And I say this to anybody running in politics. Thank you. Thank you for putting your name forward. It's not easy. And especially nowadays, like, it can be brutal, like personally brutal on human beings. And so the people that do it, I have a high regard for. Anybody that steps forward from, and it can be even more brutal at the municipal level. It gets really personal on the municipal level, right?
But it's very important to keep peace in everything, to be collaborative, and to. I think that's essential. It's an essential ingredient. I've always strived for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Pauline, and thanks for joining us at the Ice Hut today. We didn't catch anything, so no fish fry for Pauline, but we did catch a hat. And it didn't say "Make Canada Great Again" or anything like that. That could have been.
I was really worried.
I knew when you saw the white letters on the front.
I was thinking this might be a short campaign.
But wear it with pride because it says Pauline Rochefort for a Liberal victory here in Nipissing-Timiskaming.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Pauline Rochefort, thank you very much. I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Stu Campaign.
Thanks for joining us on the Echo Essentials Ice Hut edition.